bitch is a witch. Okay? She's doing things at certain times with certain amount of ingredients, and she's making a potion, and I don't know what it's going to create, but it may be a hex. Hey guys, it's me, Hailey, from the podcast you're about to listen to. I just wanted to update because as I was editing this very podcast I recorded just a few days ago, I found out the huge news that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are indeed engaged to be married. This does not truly change the content of my podcast at all. In fact, I actually think the themes that I talk about in TS12 will shed light on their relationship, as well as Taylor Swift, TS12, and her future in general. If you're looking for more content related to the engagement, I've posted a longer video of my true, honest thoughts about the couple on my Patreon, so go check that out. Enjoy the episode. Welcome back, Gaspers, to Gasp, the podcast for the gays, the girls, and especially the gay girls. Buckle up because we've got so much to cover this episode, and it's going to be good. It's going to be juicy. We're talking TS12, The Life of a Showgirl. Taylor Swift announced that her latest album, TS12, will be called Life of a Showgirl, and that will be coming out October 3rd. With fans around the world rushing to find Easter eggs in her announcement, one thing seems glaringly obvious, at least to me, and that is Taylor Swift is embodying Ophelia on the cover of her new album. Even Tavis stans, though they're swept up in the PR storm that is Taylor appearing on New Heights, even they seem to buy into the idea. What is Taylor trying to tie a connection to here? Will her fate, or rather the showgirl version of herself's fate, end up just like Ophelia's, or is this bigger than Ophelia? What does the showgirl represent? Who is the showgirl? What if Taylor is both Ophelia and Hamlet in this story? And finally, what if these connections don't just end at Hamlet, but extend farther? This episode will uncover a whole new meaning to the statement, Taylor Swift is a modern day Shakespeare. Guys, I swear to God, there's like police sirens and stuff going outside right when I'm trying to record this. If you're wondering why does Hailey drink every single episode lately, it's because I live in DC, in Trump's America. So today I'm going to dive into all of the Hamlet and Macbeth connections in Taylor Swift's art, life, and unfolding story through TS12, aka The Life of a Showgirl. And I'll talk about the two Taylors theory specifically and explore the shared metaphors between Shakespeare's plays and how Taylor Swift writes about her potential coming out. We'll of course also cover Easter eggs and highlights from the announcement of The Life of a Showgirl. Duh. Obviously. Okay, before we get into all of that, just a reminder, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or wherever you're listening to this and you don't watch on YouTube, or if you are watching on YouTube and you have not yet subscribed to my YouTube, please take this time to go to my YouTube and subscribe. I have so many more listeners than I actually do YouTube subscribers, and you might be wondering, why does that matter if you have so many listeners? And thank you so much for listening. It means that I can monetize my YouTube if I have a certain amount of subscribers. So please go to my YouTube and subscribe. It's free to do that. And also, if you are wanting new bonus content in between episodes, because I release episodes every 2 weeks, head to my Patreon because I'm releasing a new episode this week. This is a special one because I was going to share like my real true feelings about the New Heights podcast on like maybe this podcast or on TikTok. And then I realized like I'm going to get so much shit from it from Swifties. They're going to find me and they're going to like, destroy me for like my true thoughts. So I decided I would actually just air those out on a Patreon bonus episode. So if you want to know my thoughts on the New Heights podcast and go through like all the craziest moments in my opinion, from Taylor Swift on the New Heights podcast, go to my Patreon. I will be releasing that very shortly. And lastly, I also release these episodes early for all my Patreon subscribers. So if you don't want to wait until Tuesday for an episode, subscribe to my Patreon and you will get an early episode. Okay, let's start by talking about TS12 and just like Easter eggs and theories before I get into my Shakespeare theories, okay? So first of all, I had no idea that we were gonna get this. I was thinking we would get TS12 next, but I just didn't think it was gonna come like before late fall. So such a pleasant surprise, so exciting. The only thing I would say is hate how much Travis Kelce is involved, but y'all know that I do think that that is because this is a PR moment. Like, this era is showcasing how much performance art she does off stage, which is also her stage. So I think there's a meaning to it. I just still hate it. But again, she has to feed both of our little communities, the Hetlers, the Gaylers, and everyone in between. You know what I mean? Gagged so far at the visuals, gagged so far at the names of the songs, gagged at the whole theme. Like, Showgirl 1920s, love. It is also funny how like none of the songs that she's announced sound like they're even gonna be love songs for Travis. And I think that's really hilarious because like Tavis stans have been waiting patiently for an album about Travis. And they might not even get it, you guys. Like, I think this whole thing has been set in stone before Travis. Like, I think this is like a prophecy. Like, step by step, she's releasing these albums to get to TS13, where I think something big's gonna happen. I think she's gonna come out. I hope I'm right. I honestly am confused by all the colors going on in the album as well. Like, we know that Karma's supposed to be orange. There's a lot of orange happening, but it's not just orange. And I guess my question is this orange burning down the Lover House to make way for her to go over the rainbow into Oz? And that's why all of a sudden these like vinyls that she's releasing are all the colors of the rainbow. Plus, orange was the only color she hadn't done yet. So she's kind of completed the rainbow in her own eras. So yeah, I do think that this is technically karma. If you guys want to go into the karma theory, I have an episode about that. So go check that one out. I kind of explain the karma theory a little bit more in depth. But I do think that this is karma. It's orange. Karma is fire, and she's burning down her past lives. Maybe that is burning down this performance Taylor. That's why I almost think it's going to be a double album, and she's going to release a part 2, Fate of a Showgirl, kind of like the Fate of Ophelia track, or maybe the Death of a Showgirl, the Death of a Star, as some people have theorized, because there's so much astrology going on. Again, there's so many theories in this, and I will continue to talk more about it like as the album gets closer. And I also have many TikToks on it as well. There's just so many themes in here that are just so juicy. And even if they're not even like what Taylor has intentionally tried to do, it's just they're so interesting to think about. Her announcing Karma the night of a meteor shower, like right after a full moon, is pretty wild and pretty witchy of her. And also, let's remember, karma is like a core concept in astrology. And the other theory that I know we've all tossed around and thought about that I still do believe is going to happen is the 3-2-1 exile theory that I think she set into motion with Midnights. And she was saying all this stuff with Midnights being like, okay, it's a clock. Like, there's 4 quarters of the clock. And I think Midnights was the first, and then she counted down, and it's counting down to 13. We also have like the exile is over Easter egg in the 3-2-1, and I think that makes so much sense and feels like such a Taylor thing to do, where Midnights had 3 a.m. bonus tracks, TTPD had 2 a.m. bonus tracks. I think TS12, The Life of a Showgirl / Karma, will have bonus tracks, at least one more bonus track at 1 a.m., which makes way for Midnight, where I think we're gonna meet me at midnight, meet Taylor at midnight, and that's going to be TS13, the real Taylor. That's what I think. And perhaps Karma, this era, is fire and burning down the eras of her, and maybe the last hurrah of like the performance Taylor before it's all burnt down, ? That's what I think. There's also just so much like Bejeweled Midnights like energy with all the visuals. The Bejeweled music video is so like Showgirl. We see Dina Von Teese in it. And a lot of people have theorized that TTPD wasn't meant to be written, and that it was like kind of a blip in between Midnights and TS12. I totally disagree. I think maybe, those tracks she hadn't like written before that, but the black and white psych ward to full color Showgirl feels very intentional. And I think Midnights is setting the scene of these huge themes and these fairy tales and these larger stories about like kingdoms and castles and becoming the king of the castle and karma and all of this stuff. And I think that TTPD is like the black and white tortured poet. And then TS12 is like Life of a Showgirl is Showgirl performance art Taylor. And I think TS13 is real Taylor. Also, this like fairy tale theory of like meet me at midnight just feels so poignant and relevant because like what happens at midnight in Cinderella? The fairy dust, the magic is removed, okay? And all of a sudden she is her again, the real Cinderella. And she doesn't have the carriage. She doesn't have like the beautiful dress, and she's just her. And that just feels so relevant to like the clock is ticking down to when the magic wears off and it's really just Taylor at TS13. And like maybe even after all that, she will still get the castle and exile will end. I don't know. Like we don't know what's going to happen. These are all just theories and we'll see what she does with them. Okay, let's also talk about the phrase that like Hetlers love to use. And I'll talk more about the podcast again in this bonus episode on Patreon. But this phrase of what Taylor said in the podcast, quote, "I never Easter egg about my own personal life." She's a liar because braids of lies. That's a huge visual that she used for one of these like CD covers for TS12. There's like literally braids behind her. And we know that that's a lyric she used, braids of lies. 2, Pinocchio. There's a little Pinocchio behind them in the New Heights podcast. For what reason? People are coming up with the stupidest reasons beyond like the one thing we know Pinocchio like symbolizes in popular culture. The one thing. He lies. He can't help but lie. His nose grows bigger. Why is that so confusing to people? Everyone's like, oh my God, Wood, maybe he's a real boy. The man. I'm like, you guys are thinking too much. She's a liar. Like, what? And then 3, it's just not true. She Easter eggs about her personal life all the time. So, and then a lot of people who comment that in order to like refute a Gaylor statement, it's like, even though I also do think that she does Easter egg about her personal life, Easter egging is not a queer lyric. So if she's just writing a queer lyric, it's like she's writing lyrics about her personal life. She never said she doesn't write lyrics about her personal life, but remember, she's a liar, okay? I can show you lies. I also think this era, and even just like the touch of it that we've seen so far, has really confirmed that performance art is a thing. And in the podcast, she says performance art, okay? What is performance art? It's not a performance. She didn't have to use the word performance art. And that's a phrase that Gaylors have been saying since the beginning of the Eras Tour, especially when Travis Kelce went on stage and they performed I Can Do It With a Broken Heart. She did not have to confirm that Gaylor theory. She could have just said performance, but she didn't. And also, if she knew that Gaylors were saying that, she like hated Gaylors so much, she wouldn't have used that phrase. We're going to talk so much more about performance art and performance artler next episode because I have an exciting special Gaylor guest next episode. So this era and how like she talks so much about like being a showgirl and her being on stage, even though she says that she's gonna like show what goes on behind the curtain, the veil of the era is showgirl performance. And I think this just harkens back to the 2 Taylors theory that we see from Antihero. There's the real Taylor. There's like the poet. There's the one who wears like gay clothing. Because like literally in the Antihero music video, the like poet Taylor looks gayer. And perhaps this Taylor was killed off in Reputation. And I think this is very plausible because in the Look What You Made Me Do music video, there's a grave of her. And she says, the old Taylor can't come to the phone right now. She's dead. What if Reputation killed off the old Taylor and now all we have is this performance Taylor? And then that one needs to be killed off too. More to that later. But yeah, this performance Taylor is the on-stage performer. And she's also not just on stage, but she is the outward persona Taylor in pop culture. And in real life, the stage is not just the Eras Tour stage. And I think that's what a lot of mainstream Swifties are not really getting at. This is the Taylor that has to lie to protect herself, to protect the real one inside. Okay, also the night of the announcement, there's so much green going on with the orange. And I think like I went live with a lot of people and we were like, why is it green? We were thinking like, what if this is her referencing like the Emerald City? And karma, as the fire in your house, is going to burn the Lover House down in this era to make way for her to get to the Emerald City, if that makes sense. And the black and white TTPD era of her being in Kansas City and her in a fucking psych ward because she was going insane because she hated it here so much and she was going to lunar planets in her mind of the Emerald City, and that these were all just dreams of Oz. And it really makes sense for, the Wizard of Oz. These are these like dreamscapes. And in the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy is having a dream. And what does she dream of? This Technicolor world. And what if we are now in this Technicolor world with Life of a Showgirl? The last song we got on TTPD was Clairbeau. Clairbeau was a 1920s dancer, showgirl, who's also bisexual. But when you also think of like other showgirls and also like famous women like abused by Hollywood, which is I think is what she's going to talk about a lot in this album or sing about, you think of Judy Garland, who played Dorothy. I think it just makes so much sense for the Wizard of Oz to be a theme here, and that she has to like go over the rainbow to get here. Also, Meet Me at Midnight, and Me, the music video, is pretty much like the Emerald City. Like there's so much connected here. Is the Lover House like literally like the house like from Kansas that like fell down into Oz? I also think like Taylor Swift would be someone to like choose a beard because he plays for the Kansas Chiefs, and she could be like, oh my God, it's perfect for my little Wizard of Oz story of like black and white Kansas to this like Technicolor rainbow gay world. It's actually hilarious. And then this of course begs the question, is she out of the woods? Out of the Woods song in Wizard of Oz is so similar to the Taylor Swift song Out of the Woods. I don't even know how she like didn't have to pay some rights to that song because it's so similar. As they see Emerald City, I mean, come on. It also just reminds me of Daylight. But in the podcast, more to this theory on New Heights or whatever, she also does say that this album will reveal what's going on behind the curtain. And this very much seems like a reference to The Wizard of Oz and like how this is a performance, guys. And I think also my question is with this theory, is she Dorothy or is she the wizard? Or is she both? She could be the man behind the curtain and Dorothy. Is the wizard the performer and Dorothy the real Taylor? Like there's so many places to go with these theories, and that's why it's so fun. And that's why it's like, how is this harmful? It's just so annoying. People are like, oh my God, you guys are just so obsessed with her sexuality. I'm like, do you even listen to what gaylers talk about? We're like so deep into, like, this is like barely about sexuality at this point. Like this is just literary analysis, film analysis, and art analysis. And then, yeah, finally, I think I mentioned this before, but like this could be her with all these variants and vinyls completing the rainbow so that she can go over the rainbow and reach Emerald City. Hopefully. Finally, I wanted to talk about this theory that I came up with. And listen, we can run with it. No need to if you don't, if it doesn't resonate for you. But I was just thinking about like, if there's a double album, if there's going to be bonus tracks, I think there's going to be at least one bonus track or a documentary, which just makes so much sense that she's going to release a documentary because like, guys, they were filming at the end. Where's all that footage? And then also, is there going to be a Broadway show? Is she going to do residency in Vegas? I feel like that happens like at the end of someone's career. Is she going to make a movie about this? Like there's so many ways that like she could take this. But I do think there's going to be at least an announcement or another track or a whole new, collection of tracks after this release on October 3rd. And when she released the whole Shiny Bug collection, my mind was like spinning. And those of you who are on live with me as well, I think that like so much imagery and there's so many themes that are part of this that could go in any direction. It's going to be so interesting to see like what comes to fruition, because I don't think anyone's wrong when it comes to like what the bug could mean. Some people were saying, oh, it's like a computer bug, it's a glitch. Totally think that that's very relevant to this. Again, there's probably a double meaning, but also makes me think of like swallowing a fly. Wore my little bug barrettes today. So I had this theory that maybe she's going to release a double album and that the second part, the bonus tracks or track, will be released on Halloween. Stay with me here. It makes sense with the colors. A lot of these colors, and maybe it's all rainbow, but some of these colors are like green and orange and purple, and that just gives Halloween and it gives witches. And this Shiny Bug collection. So as many people have pointed out, Taylor swallowed a fly 3 times during the Eras tour. Again, this 3 is very relevant because 3, 2, 1, Exile's over. She's counting down to midnight. It also made a lot of us think on live, the poem, there was an old lady who swallowed a fly. And this poem is like very classic poem of like, she swallowed a fly, don't know why she swallowed a fly, perhaps she'll die. And it just feels very relevant to Taylor. It also sounds like swallowed a lie. I feel like this is a metaphor for her swallowing lies. And it's getting bigger and bigger and worse, and she can't handle it anymore until she dies. And this like of her swallowing a bug during the Eras tour is an Easter egg for this. There's no way she swallowed a bug 3 times for no reason. And there's no way it just like amped up to this collection. And she just randomly was like, oh, shiny bug. Haha, I swallowed a bug. Like, there's more to it. There has to be. There's a lot of connection between witches and beetles, onyx, wintergreen, and violets. These vinyls were named after. That's just very interesting to me. Taylor Swift loves to talk about astrology, karma, witchiness, elements, prophecy, onyx, wintergreen, violet, flowers. She's making a potion, bitch. Like, this is not for fun. She's not naming something onyx and beetle. Like, this bitch is a witch. Okay? She's doing things at certain times with certain amount of ingredients, and she's making a potion, and I don't know what it's going to create, but it may be a hex. I hope it is. Hex girl. It just made me think, if this album is karma and karma is fire, is it not just going to burn down the Lover House, but is it going to burn her down with it? Is it going to burn a witch? When does everyone talk about witches? Halloween. It just makes sense with the colors, Halloween colors, and like all of these elements that are used in witchcraft. And oh, and by the way, I have a whole episode on witchcraft. It's in my first season. I had so much fun making it. I did so much research, and I'm so into witchcraft now due to my research and just getting into it. Thank you, Taylor Swift, and thank you to all the witches in my comment section. But I'm probably going to make another Halloween witch episode because there's so much to talk about with witches, with lesbians, with like feminism, with pop culture, with Taylor Swift. It's never ending, and it's like so fun and interesting and like cool to get into. Is the fire burning the witch? Is that going to be the death of a showgirl or the death of a star? And could that be the part 2 to life of a showgirl? I feel like the life is really setting us up for a death, ego death, perhaps. Okay, that was a lot of theories. There's so much here that has been like spinning in my brain. If you want me to go more in depth in like any of these specific theories, let me know. And I also have TikToks on all of these as well. But what I wanted to talk about for like the bulk of the episode, and it might not even end up being the bulk of the episode because of how long it took me to explain those theories, but what I really wanted to like focus on and shed light on is these connections to Shakespeare plays. I don't think this is accidental at all, and I think there's so much to this theory. We're not really reaching when we talk about Taylor's connections in her music, and I think in her like own life story, and almost aligning it with these Shakespeare plays and the story of Hamlet and the story of Macbeth. This isn't a stretch anymore because the cover of The Life of a Showgirl is literally her drowning. It's giving Ophelia. And then, of course, she has a song, she has a track that we haven't heard yet called The Fate of Ophelia. So what could that mean? Bare minimum, like literally bare minimum from like a Hitler perspective, there is no way you could make meaning out of this connection without having to confront that the fate of Ophelia is due to the men in her life thinking she's insane and creating turmoil around her. So I don't know how you confront the fact that like in Ophelia's life, her brother, her father, and her lover, this is all chaos around her. And if Taylor is Ophelia, but you think her brother, father, and Travis are perfect, there is so much more than meets the eye. And that's why it's like, I don't know how you could be a mainstream Swiftie or a Hitler Swiftie and not see what Taylor's trying to tell us in her music. Besides even the queerness, more of like talking about the men in her life. Like, even though she is so in control, she's Taylor Swift, she's a billionaire, blah, 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 blah. Did you guys watch Miss Americana? Who is on her team? Who is controlling her decisions? Who's telling her you shouldn't say this about politics? Her father. These other men who manage her company and her image and her brand. And so it's like, when everyone's like, oh my God, she would come out if she wants to. I'm like, do you know how hard it was for her to say she didn't even like Trump? That was controversial for her to say. That was so hard for her to get approval for. So think about how hard it would be for her to come out and like have her team be on board with that. I'm just saying. Let's talk about Hamlet first. And also the track Father Figure. You know, hopefully it's a sexy song of her being like, I'm daddy, but it might also be about her father. And I know Swifties get so upset when we think that she's talking about her dad. Like, it's the craziest thing that she writes a song about her dad, you guys. Like, so it's fucked up if we say she might be writing a song about her father, but it's not fucked up for you guys to say she's in her ovulation era. You guys are freaks, and not in the fun way. All right, TLDR, if you don't know what happens in Hamlet, I read both Hamlet and Macbeth. I did reading up on it, and this is just the TLDR. But any literary nerds, feel free to correct me, but this is pretty much non-negotiable. Like, this is standard readings of these plays. Like, these plays have been around for hundreds of years. These are not like unique takes of what I'm saying about the play. The unique take is the connection to Taylor Swift and maybe about her queerness and whatever. But that's why I think there's so much to this theory. These are clear readings of these plays, and Taylor's clearly attaching herself to the story of Hamlet. Like, there's not really much of a gap to jump, okay? TLDR, Hamlet's father is killed by his uncle. Hamlet wants revenge, okay? Ophelia is Hamlet's lover. I'm missing a lot here, but this is the basics that you need to understand for this theory. Hamlet mistakenly kills Polonius, who is Ophelia's father. Don't worry why, doesn't matter. All of the men in this story are, most of them, so focused on power and vengeance and revenge. Meanwhile, Ophelia is pretty much ignored and goes insane, or does she, right? Ophelia then hands out specific flowers to townspeople to signify a certain meaning, her own judgment of them through these symbols, and she then drowns herself in the river, okay? Hamlet and many others are dying. There's a lot of like people stabbing each other and people drinking poisonous wine, and you know, everyone's like getting vengeance on each other. Okay. Ophelia's brother is trying to kill Hamlet. It's crazy. Finally, Hamlet, at the end of all of this, kills his uncle, finally for revenge, but as he is actively dying. So he barely gets to do it. And before he could do that, all these other people die. What did he really do? You know what I mean? How did he really help? The end. So what is this play about? This is a play about vengeance, madness, murder, death, and ghosts. Sounds kind of Taylor Swift-esque to me. Polonius says actually about Hamlet, though this be madness, yet there is method in it. That sounds so much like Mastermind. I also did watch, don't judge me, I also did watch John Green's analysis and like reading and like summary of Hamlet and Macbeth because I was curious, and like he does just such a good job. And he had the most poignant quotes that I have so many of them written down. I have to share with you guys because they are crazy. They are so Taylor Swift-esque that I was losing my mind, and I have to share them with you. And bear you in mind, he didn't make this to be Taylor Swift related. This is just how much these two plays relate back to Taylor Swift and her themes and her music and her art, and how she's like depicting her own story, I think. John Green says, quote, "The desire for vengeance ultimately corrupts the revenge, and he or she has to die too." Does that not sound like Taylor Swift? And like this focus on revenge and vengeance over Scooter Braun, Kanye, maybe her management not letting her come out. And what does this all end in? It corrupts her, and she has to die too. The performance Taylor possibly. Hamlet is also a play within a play. So there's a play that happens within this play. Yeah. Doesn't it sound like I Can Do It With a Broken Heart? And like Taylor doing this play on stage of her having to do the Eras Tour while she's on stage? And her doing performance art while she's doing performance art? It's crazy. It's literally crazy related. And like this could also apply to her being the podcast and like her just like doing pop walks. What's also really annoying is I know that all of a sudden Hetlers are going to be like, wait guys, I think Taylor like going on dinner dates and doing pop walks is actually part of like the business Taylor. And we're going to be like, right. Isn't it funny how like we always call a theory before everyone else catches up to it? But then they'll water it down and they'll make it not Gaylor related. So This whole Hamlet analysis and these connections with Taylor Swift very much fit in my opinion, to the Tooth Taylor's theory. Here's my theory. Are you ready for it? 1, is Hamlet Taylor the showgirl? And is Ophelia Taylor the real Taylor, the poet, the innocent soul? I think Hamlet might be the man. And remember how during the Man music video, Taylor is dressed up obviously as the man and she's staring right at karma. And this whole play, Hamlet, is so focused on karma, revenge, vengeance, right? I think Hamlet is the showgirl, the performance. This is the Taylor who thinks everyone will betray her. Think of the Antihero music video and of Taylor, the performance Taylor pointing to the board and saying everyone will betray you. This is very much Hamlet coded of vengeance and like thinking everyone is out to get them. I think Hamlet is the life of a showgirl. And my question is, will this Taylor die too? Just like Hamlet dies at the very end. Is this, is this foreshadowing death of showgirl? And also like, there's a lot of choice happening here of Hamlet trying to figure out whether or not to kill his uncle for vengeance and like how to do it and when to do it. And it's a huge decision for him to make. This feels very much like Taylor trying to figure out when or if she wants to come out. And John Green has a quote. I'm just going to keep on quoting John Green because these are such relevant quotes that I have to. So sorry, literary nerds. John Green says, quote, when Hamlet makes up his mind he is dying, he has like seconds left to live. And I think that this is like, would be Taylor coming out right at the very end of her career as this image of the perfect Taylor is already dying. Then Ophelia might be the real Taylor, the poet Taylor. What if Ophelia is TTPD? Could be the one who goes mad in a psych ward, who goes insane. Or does she? Is it possible that Taylor died in the Reputation era, like the real innocent one? Because everything had been exploited and Kanye happened and she was canceled, and also Kissgate happened and like everyone found out about her and Carly and maybe her management told her to shut it down, and she the innocent part of her died because she had to keep this part of her secret. I think that could really make sense. John Green also says about Ophelia, quote, Ophelia views her death as the only way to free herself. Maybe that's the only way Taylor could like manage to do this and free herself, by like killing off this queer, innocent poet version of herself for the public eye and sectioning it away. Like she couldn't be successful and queer. It's a whole different like level of success. And I really take issue with people thinking that like her coming out would be like no big deal in the world. Like that actually pisses me off, because you think that like homophobia just doesn't exist. She is a global superstar. Think about people around the world. Think about conservatives. Whatever. Whole other topic. Hamlet is also very much a play about mirroring and doubling. Doesn't that sound very much like Taylor Swift? Doubling a meaning, but also doubling herself, the two Taylors. Mirrorball, mirroring herself to fit everyone's perspective of her, fitting herself to like give everyone what they want until it explodes, until she can't take it anymore, until there's the death of a star. John Green says, quote, you can even see Ophelia as a kind of extreme subversive double for Hamlet, like what Hamlet might be like if he were robbed of power. Doesn't that sound like what the real Taylor is? Like she wouldn't have as much power if she was like queer and authentic. I just think that this Ophelia and Hamlet dynamic is Taylor playing like this idea of what it would be like to be a man, but more so she turned the man into this like outward persona of Taylor Swift. And John Green says, when you look in the mirror, are you seeing the person that is actually you? That blew my mind, because it just, again, reminds me of the Antihero music video with the performance Taylor looking into the mirror and the real Taylor, the poet Taylor, in a white, innocent tank top, the real one, pure, innocent, is looking in the mirror. And who is who? Like, these are two people in one body. And it just feels like this is so specific to this comment. Like, I was like, holy shit, John Green. What is going on? Are you friends with Taylor Swift? Did she pay you to do this? In Antihero, Taylor Swift literally says, I'll stare directly at the sun, but never in the mirror. It must be exhausting always rooting for the anti-hero. I think that's really relevant too, because Hamlet is like supposed to be this hero to get revenge in this story, but he barely can do it. And at the end, he only caused more turmoil around him. I think antihero is just so relevant to like these theories. And I think like Midnight's, again, like I said, just really sets into motion a lot of these themes that we're going to see play out for like this era. And then I think TS13. Then we get into this really, really interesting part about Ophelia handing out flowers to the townspeople. And what John Green says about this, yes, get over it. I'm talking about John Green. Quote, "This is Ophelia delivering her own form of judgment, doing it in her own particularly feminine way behind the mask of seeming madness." Guys, like, this is literally Taylor being like, or are they going to send me away? I was supposed to be sent away. Like her waking up, her being in a psych ward, her having shock therapy, like her going insane. This is literally so relevant. And I think that Ophelia is TTPD Taylor, the poet. She hands out these flowers and each one has a very specific meaning and code. Isn't that very interesting? To send a message to each person. This is also a metaphor for Taylor Swift's Easter eggs having a very specific meaning and maybe even queer flagging. I'll tell you why. I also think flowers are also a metaphor for karma or justice. The flowers in the painting of Ophelia with all the flowers of her after she drowned in the river, I know other people pointed this out, but it just looks so much like the Eras Tour piano as well. And just like Taylor has so many songs talking about these flowers and like lavender and roses and carnations you had thought were roses and violets and daisies. And it's like, they don't have no meaning. She's not just throwing this flower out for no meaning. These all have a meaning, just like Ophelia gave meaning to each of these flowers. Oh my God, she's insane. She's insane. None of this actually matters. Like, but it does. She is smarter than we all give her credit for. Like Ophelia. Like, they're just not devoid of meaning. Okay, John Green says, quote, "These flowers each have meaning that would be known to the Elizabethan audience, who were the kind of people who liked their bouquets to contain secret codes, like the Gaylors, and how we like, you know, our little Gaylor flagging, our queer flagging." And then he says, "She's doing it in a way that's clear. I mean, at least it will be clear to Elizabethans." And I think that's so relevant. It's like, it's clear to some people who get it. If you know, you know. Takes one to know one. Cowboy like me. Crazy to me. Like that statement. I was like, holy shit, this is just so relevant to Taylor Swift and her songwriting. Okay, then Ophelia says that she would have given out violets, but said they all withered when her father died. And that's really relevant because Taylor named one of these vinyls Violet Shimmer. Here's the craziest part, you guys. She names a daisy, but doesn't actually give it out to anyone. Ophelia names a daisy, which is seen as symbolic of her belief that there is no more true innocence left in this town. Guys, Kaylor Daisy, don't blame me. And then it just reminds me so much of that pin that Taylor Swift wore during the Lover era with the gravestone and a daisy next to it saying, "I tried." Daisy, a flower that Ophelia gives out to no one because no one deserves it, because there's no innocence left. And then she has it next to the gravestone saying, "I tried." Gravestone, she's dead. Just like Ophelia, who died. It's too specific. It's actually fucking crazy. Either she's a mastermind or like this is just her inherent prophecy because there's too many things that match up. Truly. Hamlet, crazy. Let's move on to Macbeth, which will be a little bit shorter. AKA the Scottish play, because, and you should say this if you're ever in a theater, because apparently if you say Macbeth in a theater, you will be cursed. Because the witches that are in the story that I'll tell you about. But yeah, so many people have died during the productions of Macbeth when they say Macbeth in the theater that people now say the Scottish play because like people have been killed by real daggers or like fallen off the stage or like crazy shit. So anyways, TLDR, what's the story? Macbeth. This takes place in Scotland, okay? He receives a prophecy. Yeah, the prophecy. Obviously, Taylor Swift doesn't have like a specific lyric that's like called Macbeth or like the fate of Macbeth, but like it's not, now at this point we know she like knows a lot about Hamlet. She's obviously reading Macbeth. She's incorporating a lot of these Shakespeare themes into her music. And also, very quick pause, like Taylor Swift has had so many plaid pap walks before this era. Like it just feels so relevant that she's like maybe Easter egging Macbeth. I don't know. And maybe Karma at the same time. But yeah, like when I tell you about some of these like themes, it just is so Taylor Swift coded. And like she wouldn't have stopped at Hamlet. She's a literary nerd. Macbeth receives a prophecy from a trio of witches, 3 of them, that he will be king of Scotland one day. Isn't it just so like Taylor Swift coded? But he has to kill to get there. Okay. He does kill the king, and then he then becomes king. Again, this is very TLDR. Okay. He then becomes the king. He's the king of the castle, but then he is killed and the rightful heir becomes king. So in both of these stories, the like hero, or the anti-hero rather, is killed. Okay. This is a play about prophecies, ambition, witches, ghosts, murder, and choice. Again, very Taylor Swift coded. Macbeth literally cannot resist his own ambition. And I feel like this is so relevant to Taylor Swift because a lot of people are like, oh my God, if she was gay, why would she like be hiding it all this time? I've been saying this for so long. She knows she cannot be at this pinnacle of success if she is queer. I think she has this like huge ambition, like as she said, like covert narcissism, this desire to be famous, like a fame monster on the hill. She doesn't want to give it up. Like she has this ambition to be as famous as she can be, like Macbeth, to be the king of the castle, to be the king, to rule all the land. Reminds me of the Bejeweled music video where she ghosted the prince and got the keys to the castle. When she ghosted the prince, is that really her killing off the prince? And is that like interpreted as murdering? Like I ghosted him, killed him? I don't know. Just think it's interesting. Could that be interpreted as murdered the prince? Also, back to antihero. Because again, I do think Midnight's created the themes. She says, I have this dream my daughter-in-law kills me for the money. She thinks I left them in the will. The family gathers round and reads it, and then someone screams out, she's laughing up at us from hell. She knows that she is not this perfect person. She's the anti-hero. Dear reader, find yourself another hero. Or what does she say? Never take advice from someone who's falling apart. Again, these desperate prayers of a curse man comes from Dear Reader. Crazy. You should find another guiding light is what she says. So I think she knows that like she has this like narcissistic quality. She's not pretending to be this perfect person, which is like, she's like, no, I have so much ambition and I'm doing this to be famous. I think that's really interesting. And like, yeah, that's toxic. And like, I want her to be more political and I want, I think this would all be worth it if, comes to fruition. Like, I will excuse all of her sins. And I also think it's kind of iconic for like a woman to be doing it for once instead of a man. Usually it's men who are the toxic fame monsters, like Macbeth and like Hamlet. And that's why she's the man. What would it be like about bragging about getting bitches and models? But yeah, when she says an anti-hero, like I had this dream my daughter-in-law kills me for the money. So similar. That's so similar to Macbeth being the king and then being killed off. And then the rightful heir becomes king. That's crazy. Macbeth also says in the play, quote, a dagger of the mind of false creation. Reminds me of daylight. Threw out our cloaks and our daggers now because it's morning now. It's brighter now. It is this like push and pull of darkness and light, of choice, of being a good person versus a bad person. As John Green says it, this ambiguous morality. That is so Taylor Swift coded. It's not even funny. Okay, now we get to such an interesting part, witches and half-truths. So if you remember these witches, this trio of witches, 3, 2, 1, exiles over, how many witch stuff does she have? Goes back to my witch theory. But there's a huge thing in this play about witches and half-truths. Again, this is not something that is like you have to dig deep to find. This is a main theme. So for Swifties or like Hetlers that are like, oh my God, you guys like search for the craziest shit and they're actively thinking she does Morse code, which maybe she does. I don't know. I can't speak Morse code. But like, this is not digging that deep. if you think she's like maybe tying a connection to Macbeth, this is a very clear thing that happens in Macbeth. So the witches say continuously through the play, quote, fair is foul and foul is fair. I'm sure you've heard that many times. This is like obviously a statement of contradiction and double meaning. Sounds relevant because Taylor loves a double meaning of a lyric. And also maybe it's not just in her lyrics, but it's in her performance of being a star, right? What's very interesting about this is that John Green says, yes, back to John Green, quote, a lot of scholars link this linguistic ambivalence to the issue of equivocation, which means answering in ways that are deliberately unclear. How many times are like Hetlers and Swifties or Hetlers and Gaylors debating one sentence that Taylor Swift says, being like, no, it means this, no, it means this, no, it means this, whether in lyrics, whether it's her being like, she could have easily said, I'm straight, or I'm not queer, or I'm not part of the LGBTQ community. She doesn't even say that. She says, I didn't realize until recently I could advocate for a community I'm not a part of. A community. Doesn't even say which one. That is deliberately unclear. She's saying half-truths. And equivocation is actually a method historically used by Catholics, Catholic here, to avoid persecution while also not sacrificing their own beliefs and their own identities. So Catholics would avoid saying, I'm not Catholic or I am a Catholic, and saying some half-truth so that they wouldn't be persecuted, but they also wouldn't be like sacrificing what they know was true to themselves. So Taylor is never going to be like, I am straight. She's not in this, time of ambivalence and half-truths. She's not going to say, I am queer. She's going to say, lips so scarlet they were maroon. She's going to say, closets like cedar. She is being deliberately unclear. She's doing half-truths, and it is working for everyone and no one at the same time. Like these witches. Like they're double meanings to everything. Also, there's a really interesting rumor that Macbeth was actually written by someone else as well, which just made me think of the theory that she might be a ghostwriter for Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but I don't even know how I fit in with that. I just think it is eerily strange how similar Evelyn Hugo, that book, is to Taylor Swift's music. The big theme of this play of Macbeth is fate versus choice, prophecy, right? And ambiguous morality and this ambition, this almost toxic ambition to get to the top, to get where you want to be, and it biting you in the ass. She doesn't care who she hurts on the way. John Green says when Macbeth murders, it is a, quote, a murder that Macbeth both desires and is horrified by. She is horrified by the fact that she is sacrificing her morals and her values by rising to the top, but her ambition wants it so bad. She wants to be the king in the castle. When she gets to the top, and I would argue she's already there, is she going to bring her friends to the summit? Is this going to be like a mass coming out situation? So to summarize the Shakespeare connections, one of these plays is about vengeance, and the other is about ambition. Pretty relevant to Taylor Swift. The main theme that both of these have is this conflict, internal turmoil over choice. It just feels so striking to Taylor Swift. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I've just been having like such a time researching this and like digging into Shakespeare and like getting back into these plays that I haven't read in so long. Thank you, Taylor Swift. All of this is just so interesting and fun and exciting. So let me know what you guys pick up on, and I hope you guys really enjoyed this deep dive. And if you want more content before the next episode, go to my Patreon. I'm gonna have 2 new bonus episodes there, and one of them will be my real true harsh thoughts that I would say to my girlfriend. Just please don't like record it and post it because I don't want to be bullied by hetlers. Anyways, I hope you have a great week. Okay, love you guys. See you so soon. Thank God we have some more Taylor content to distract us from the world we're living in. See you soon.